everyone, Marko here. Today we're going to look at the Sprint dashboard functionality on the platform, and it's available over here on the right through the Sprints community. This is an open community. Anyone can join. You don't need any special permissions, except if you want to edit it, then you have to be me. So Sprints, uh, if you want to know more about Sprints, look up Agile software development. And the agile approach, one aspect of it is it can divide your project up into sprints. I happen to use weekly sprints because that time period aligns well with weekly DAO meetings, and it's a natural fit. I've also used 2 weeks. I've even used 4 weeks in some organizations. And so when you come into the sprint dashboard, you'll see this is the project planning and sprint tracking. And we've got some project statistics up here. There are 36 backlog items. I'll explain what that is in a minute. And 11 completed sprints. We'll look through those. So in other words, we've gone through 11 weeks worth of development thus far. And so far, I've spent a total of 550 hours, a little over, and written 92.7 thousand lines of code. KLOC is short for 1,000 lines of code, and 408 commits. That's basically how many releases or versions I've saved out into GitHub across 322 source files. So these are all my application source files, 322 of them. And we started September 9th, 2025. And we're hoping to launch a production environment Q1 of next year. So, um, backlog items, we'll go through those. Basically, in the version of Agile sprint methodology that I'm using, you work from a backlog of items. And so let's go ahead and start there. This is basically a queue of work in rough prioritization order that's been teed up as a future part of a sprint, part or all of a sprint, maybe even more than one sprint. But you can see there's a lot of work out here stacked up in the future. This backlog, I continually work, adding more items to it and occasionally removing an item if it becomes irrelevant. They're each typically a block of functionality that I would try to fit within one sprint, try to divide it down to a block of work that fits within a sprint. And so you can see a lot of different things here. Some of these are actually bugs, low priority bugs that need to be fixed. Others are things or events like a full beta test with the very DAO. Other things are features that our early beta testers have requested. For example, sound notifications when a new message arrives. Um, Lots of different things here. We've got a feedback community over here. I won't go into that today, but the feedback community is where people put their bug reports or enhancement requests or any of those kind of items. And if it's a good idea and we accept it and prioritize it in, it will end up in this queue here. And likewise with, say, design requirements coming in from Riz or potentially infrastructure requirements coming in from Liam or Tom or someone else working on the nodes, or requirements around API potential implementation or changes with Reggie and his dev team. So this is our just what it's just what the name is. It's a backlog of work that we pick and choose from. And if anything new, a new piece of scope comes in, typically I'll add it to the backlog here and then pull it into the current sprint. And so the current sprint is right now sprint 11. This is our 12th week because we started in sprint 0. I typically start with a sprint 0. And I've pulled in multiple different pieces of functionality here. And AI liked to call them phases, so I just stuck with that. And as it says, you can drag and drop these to reorder the priority in here. And this is the one I'm working on right now, the VeTest P2P Sprint Management. And we see another one, bug fixes and minor enhancements in progress, with a number of items under here. Typically, in the backlog, I'll put a description of the work that needs to be done. And then as the work starts to progress in the sprint, I'll save periodically releases to GitHub, and that's what each of these are. You could actually click that and it will go out, and you can see the link down there at the bottom of the page. It will go out and open up that actual commit in GitHub, and you can see all of the data related to it. You can also open this up over here on the right and look at all of the detail inside of there. So each each phase here typically has one or more commits to it. The YouTube video is a little different. There's nothing to commit there. The deliverable actually exists over in YouTube. So it's flexible like that. You can use it however you want. Each week, each sprint, I'll push a collection of functionality out to the staging node. And the staging node is our test node. That's where all of this functionality, I test it on my development environment, and then we push it to staging, and the beta test team and a broader team examines the functionality in there and tests it out in there. And let's see what else we got. We have some completed items here. RPC infrastructure for multi-provider fallback. That's a technical infrastructure requirement I needed to implement. And we had a bug here, file upload. The staged file wouldn't clear after you uploaded it into Codex, so we put a little bug fix on that. And we're creating a landing page out here, future landing page. So more about that coming up. I implemented this release, some basic node health monitoring for the dev and the staging nodes, and that will be expanded in the future to production. And just a point of note on that, staging is practice for production. That's what we use it for. It should be treated like production, the production environment. The goal is to make it as close to production as possible and put the new release in the staging environment and then thoroughly test it there. And once it's tested out and all the little bugs and nits are worked out, then we can promote it to the production environment. With the goal being to get all the bugs out before it hits production, if possible. And so health monitoring, we put that in. Bridge API user authorization. So this sprint with this version, I implemented a self-registration approach to the platform where users can self-register with their own password that only they know. They can reset it and whatever. They can change their display name up here. Mark VeTest is my example of that, and some other functionality that we'll get into down the road. And then down toward the bottom, I put in the feedback community. We see that over here this time. That's already in use. And then down at the bottom, we see completed and committed work, 110 commits. So what this is the commits, the work that's been committed to GitHub that are basically versions or part of versions. And we see a couple things here. And so when these come in, every time I do a commit, they'll come into this bottom section here. And then I attach them to the appropriate phase that's part of this particular sprint. And so this is updating the changelog for staging releases. So this was associated with a staging release. So I put it there and just say move it into that phase, and it will take that commit and move it into wherever I put it. And so we have one more here, fix monitoring reports, the API endpoint mapping. Go ahead and do that. That's related to, let's see, what are we? Monitoring reports. That's for the health monitoring. This one's completed, but as long as you're in the current sprint, I can still If there's some follow-up work, I happen to complete that, marked it complete a little too early, and I had one more thing to add to it. So we can go ahead and do that and move that commit into there. So now those are cleaned out, and we've got that phase, add feedback, done. We've got our Bridge API user authentication done. We've got our add node health monitoring for sysadmins done. The VeTest.app landing page done. File upload, clear the staged file after send. That was a bug fix. That's done. The RPC infrastructure for the multi-provider fallback architecture. This is a technical requirement. That's done. Our staging releases are done. I'm going to mark this as complete. I've already put the hours in, but I'll show you how I can do it. When I add the backlog item into the backlog, I'll put a name and some details around it, and also estimated hours. So I estimated 2 hours on this one for this week, and I came out at 3. So there's a little bit more on staging this week than I anticipated. So I'll go ahead and mark that as completed. And one note on here, it is a little slow. First of all, this is primarily the backlog data and sprint data are still in flat files. I haven't migrated them to a SQL database yet. So when I do that, it'll speed it up and make the operation a little better. This primarily just hits me though, because I'm the only one doing the editing of the sprint plans. For everyone else, it's view only. So bug fixes and minor enhancements, I'm going to go ahead and mark that as complete. And then the last thing here would be the YouTube video. And when I finish this video I'm working on right now, and upload it to YouTube and get it past all the YouTube checks and published, then I'll mark this one as complete, and this will be the last activity of this sprint. You can see the sprint's 98% over. I've got my sprints set to run Monday morning to Sunday night. And so Sunday evenings are typically when I would close out the sprint, or, if I'm not working on a weekend, it'd be Friday night or whatever. But we're at the end of this sprint. You can see all the functionality and the bug fixes and everything that went into this sprint. So you see on a daily basis here what I've been doing. And what will happen then later tonight when I close that out after I finish the YouTube video, it and I hit finalize sprint 11, it'll close out this current sprint 11 and move it into the past queue. And so we'll see on here then sprint 11 will show up on top. So here we see sprint 10 was last week. And so you can go in and look week by week again what I've done. So this just transferred directly over from last Sunday, the current sprint, which was 10. And so this is how it looks once it moves over. And again, same thing, you can expand these out and look within each commit, each version of code that I push to GitHub. You can see the commit summary and notes that I put in there with that. This one happened to be a very large commit, part of this bigger change here to migrate the dev environment to new hardware. So that was a pretty beefy commit there. And you can see there were quite a few commits in that work and some other stuff there. And you can go down through the entire 11 and after tonight, 12 past weeks worth of work and open any of them and see what I did that particular week. All the commits that I did with it and a high level summary of the work that was accomplished. You can actually go back to the very beginning, the very first sprint, the very first commit in here, all the way back to day one, September 9th, initial commit. And so from here, the system progressed from this very first commit all the way up to the point you see it in now. And you can see then week by week, in general, the work I did that week. So that sprint 0 was the waku node infrastructure. And then sprint 1, I started building on it with the front end foundation and real time messaging. And then week by week, you see the focus for each particular week, what I worked on. And so this will also come into benefit later on when Reggie implements uh, proof of productive effort. This will be a good, real good input for my productive effort. I've got all the proof I need right here. And so also this will come into play later. One of my objectives is to make this, with Reggie's approval, a reference app for the Veritasium APIs that will access the intent and settlement functionality. And when I get to that point, I'd intend to open this up as open source so that anybody could come in and take a peek at what I've done, look at any particular sprint, all the work that I've done in the past, even look in the, what's happening out here yet still to be done, and make their own front end to the APIs, or repurpose it into other needs. So that's the goal, one of the goals of the platform. And so that's kind of it for sprints and the sprint dashboard and the sprint management functionality. And I'll just put in one more little nice bit of Easter egg here for everyone who stuck around to the end of the video. I'm working on opening up a beta. Actually, the initial beta will be starting quite soon among the DAO. And depending on how that progresses, and how well the platform handles the load, and however many bugs we find in it, etc., then I'll start to open that beta up probably to the full Veritasium community at some point. So stay tuned for that. And thanks for watching the video and supporting the platform. And look forward to seeing you here on the next one. So take care, everyone. Thanks much, and goodbye.